I'm talking about. It's a project assistant position in all institutes, all the things. Or write to me, I will give an opportunity, like I can figure out where to go. Okay? So that is my idea to tell you here. I see that one of the things is I don't see candidate students coming from this area much. I travel to come here, Mangalore. I came to LSCS always to tell students there are lots of opportunities. Come this side, like come to this, your life is wonderful. Okay? So, so many things. Every day is like an exciting day for us. So many things. And I have a lot of do. And another one thing which I want to tell, don't just focus, somebody will say that I'm organic chemist, organic, physical, industrial, all this. The students, like I work on everything, from inorganic, organic. When you research that level, it doesn't matter whether it's inorganic, organic, physical. It doesn't matter, we don't even distinguish whether it's chemistry or physics or biology. Everything is important. 50% of my students come from engineering background. BE, BTech, all these things. Okay, chemical engineering, mechanical engineering. Those people work on battery management system. Chemistry students will work. So everybody has something to contribute in this field, energy field. Right? You can be engineer. If you know somebody different, engineering, send them there. We will know what to do there. All that important is your enthusiasm, interest. Okay. Everything we learn there. Like when I was doing master MSc, I was like one of you. Right? I did not know anything about this. But the curiosity takes you somewhere else. Okay, that's what I want to tell the message, that don't stop it here after MSc. Take a research career. Long, it takes you everywhere. And you will have a finally at the end of the day, you feel that you have done something. You have contributed something to society. So all this, when I work on project, finally you see that the work is what I do somewhere in Chennai also goes to somewhere, some other part of India, Assam, or even the place like here where there is no electricity or something. The work which you do on electric vehicles, all these things, finally we see that on our own road, here in Mangalore, there is a fantastic feeling, right? So that's what I would say, that all this research, finally has a societal benefits. Okay, I'm just continuing what the talk which I have been giving, this continuation of that. So when we talk about all, I'm just from the introduction of batteries, now slowly moving towards the higher, interesting thing about that, or better ones, these are electric vehicles, all these things. So when we talk about batteries, all these things, electric vehicles, batteries and all this, we see that today it's in the prime position, it's the most important hot topics, EV, electricals. But I just want to say from here, this slide, that this is not just new thing. For this building electric vehicles started beginning of 19th century. In fact, 1895, century ago, people started to build electric vehicles. This is one of the photographs. That time the EV was looking like this. But there is no much space because all this is filled with the lead acid batteries. Heavy. You might have seen the old Reva cars, right? You remember those two-seaters? I think it is only two-seater because it's flooded or filled with lead acid batteries. So heavy car is, because there is no space for even people to sit there. So 19th century beginning, this is somewhere I think in the fans, this was a photograph taken. This is how the EV was looking. 1920, 1930, actually people are so interested with the EV vehicles that it seems in 1925-30, most of the cars coming in the exhibition were the EV cars. Only one or two were petrol cars. Okay. So from here to reach here, this is Tesla Roadster car, fully electric vehicle, which can run 500 kilometers in one charge. But you charge today, you can drive 500 kilometers, no petrol. From here to here, it took 100 years, 1 century full. Right? It was and at the same time, you can think that all our electronics, gadgets, TV, all this changed so much quick. The world, electronic world changed so much. But then why did it take 1 century to come from here to here? Came Parallel to that is communication, right? This is at the same time 1910. This is a photograph taken. This lady is talking with the phone, but the power is given by the lead acid battery which is carried by this man. Look, this battery, right? So heavy. So from there to reach here, also took 1 century, right? It's now. So these both took almost a century to reach to this stage. Now you understand, it took 100 years fully because we did not have good battery. From here to here, here to here. Okay, both. So the battery I told you that will change the world. The good batteries change the world. Now we have reached that stage. Okay. Next slide. So when I talk about why it took 100 years for a car to become EV, there is also political background. This is a photograph which I am showing from a movie called Who Killed the Electric Car. You can also see whether these DVDs are available. This is Tom Hanks and Mel Gibson movie. Here this one in 2006 this movie came. Who Killed the Electric Car? I told 1920, 30, most of the cars in the exhibition were electric cars. Then what happened? Why then we waited for 56 years for a car? So a lot of political game, mafia, oil mafia, all this, that movie if you see, you will understand. So people did not want that time electric vehicles for some other reasons, okay? But now it became a necessity because we don't have petrol. That time we had enough petrol, so people did not want EV to come because you know what will do the petrol market. Now we don't have petrol, we need EV vehicles, but then we don't have good batteries. So when we talk about lithium batteries, there is another concept called supercapacitors. What are supercapacitors? So why they are super? Anything is super, like Superman, right? That's what supercapacitor does. Normal capacitors, we use electric capacitors, but this supercapacitor stores huge energy. The difference between, I already told morning, between battery and supercapacitor is battery, like discharge time is slow, but supercapacitor is very fast. Charging time, okay, of course, supercapacitor can charge very fast. Lifetime, supercapacitor is much like supercapacitor can live for long compared to batteries. It's because in battery what happens is chemical reactions, charges are during that, lithium goes here, then charges between that. So there's a chemical changes, structural change, all this. But in a supercapacitor there is nothing, it's only charge storage. Like when you dip two electrodes in a solution, electrolyte, the charge are accumulated on the electrode side. There is no chemical reaction, just charges. If possible, I will try to cover that one also. So in a capacitor, it's only the charge storage on the surface. There is no chemical reaction. So that's why you can give 1 lakh times or more than that. But in a battery, lithium should shift from here to there, here to there. So a lot of then what happens? Structural changes will happen. All that. Okay. So that's the difference. But they both will have their own advantage, and both can be utilized for different purpose. For any emergency purpose, supercapacitors are the best one. See, automatic doors, the car, in emergency service, in the aircraft, they use supercapacitors. When we talk about batteries, you might have seen all this, we make them in a different shape, size, all this, like cylindrical, 18650, what we call 18650, we call them because the last 0 is has no meaning, but 18 is nothing but dia, 65 is the height, so 1865, and then we add 0, 18650. Then we have prismatic, that's in your mobile phone. Prismatic and pouch, they are more or less same, but here is the advantage here is mainly used for electric vehicles where you can stuff so many material there, so you can have high capacity, high energy. And you also might have seen coin cells or button cells in the market. Usually it's primary batteries, usually you see zinc air batteries and all that. Then we can also have a thin film battery, or somebody was asking the polymer battery. So that is the one, the polymer battery here. So it's like a ribbon. Okay. In between is the polymer over here. the separator and all this. So it's very like a ribbon. So you can have, and finally this is what also a solid state battery. Finally, like what our group is like, remove the polymer and put a solid oxide there, so solid battery. So this, like you can have, you can advantage of this battery is like one day we'll replace all the safety issues of batteries. Okay, next. Okay, this summarizes actually what's going on, what is the work going on in lithium batteries. So this is the line which I have drawn here. The materials which show the voltage or potential above 2 is considered cathode in the normal, always in the battery, in lithium battery. Below that is always an anode. So you select a cathode or anode depending on what is the potential it gives against lithium. Okay, if your material, the simple material that we talked about, V2O5, right, it gives 3. So you can select a cathode. Because your battery, finally the voltage is different between this and this. So you want to have maximum voltage, 4 volts. So you want to select one here and one from here. This is cathode and this is anode. So the difference between cathode and anode is usually typically from the potential developed against lithium. Again, I told the EMF monitor reduction potential. So these are the materials, the oxide materials which we develop. What already knows about it: lithium cobalt oxide, lithium nickel oxide, lithium manganese oxide, lithium iron phosphate. It's all here, 4 5 volt. And then we use the I told graphite, right? That's the anode material we use. It's the potential nearly 0.01. So if you combine anything between these two here, then you have maximum capacity, maximum voltage. This x-axis I have plotted is the capacity it gives. Okay. Usually in the lab, what we do is we don't combine cathode and anode. See, already battery is so complicated to tell. When I develop a material, for example, cathode, I don't first put with any of this anode. Because first I have to learn what is that using, what is that work. So what we do is, we call it half cell test. We test versus lithium. We don't test versus graphite first. Anything new we do, student, we will test with the lithium. So you use this material as a cathode. Then you put separator, like in a fine cell. Then you put a little bit, few drops of electrolyte. Then put lithium. So first we study the lithium, then we see whether it cycles well. So we call it as a lithium half cell. Okay. Once it all that works, then only I check with this anode like graphite. Because if you don't solve the issues here, then you know, already this have issue, then here are the issues. So too many parameters work at a time. So that's why we do one by one. First lithium. Similarly, when I work with anode thing, we just with the lithium alone for R&D. Then once we figure out this is going to work, then only we combine these things. Okay. Now the real issue is this. These are like whatever I'm showing here, the numbers, capacity is versus lithium metal. You can see that graphite, it is a typically anode used in your mobile phone. It gives capacity 70 is the theoretical value. It is usually lesser than that. Then we come with the new materials in silicon, silicon 4,000, right? 200 to 4,000. So huge capacity. So if you can use silicon, then you can store a lot of energy. In your own battery, whatever you use today, mobile phone, you need not charge for at least a week if you can use silicon. So much like 200, 4,000 if you can use. The real problem is not anode. The real problem is cathode. We stuck here. We are not able to move more than 250. Less than that. I will come to that this one value. But you see that we have only limited number of cathode materials to use. We have lot of anode. Well, we have to work a lot of things. There's nanomaterial field is here. But we have hope that we can reach 4,000 or near to that. But our problem is cathode. We are stuck around 200. In a battery, you need to have both have almost similar capacity. Otherwise, you cannot use silicon and LiC board. Then there's a mismatch of capacity. and then you have problem of like how much material loading per centimeter square. All these issues, engineering issues come. So ideally we need to move from here to forward this side. Well, anode side is okay. So cathode we have real problem. So in a lithium ion battery, the real problem is finding cathode material. Okay, next slide. Okay, the criteria. Okay, I will I will not spend much time here because I already talked chemical stable non-toxic. Okay, go to next slide. So these are the known cathode materials. 3, 4. Lithium cobalt oxide. This is the one which I got mobile batteries. And spinner. Again, you don't want cobalt, very expensive material. So you'll be better off with manganese, and also lot of fire issues with cobalt, so manganese better. Then I told about lithium iron phosphate, which was recently 2007 figured out that a lot of companies work this because very for a company wise, very cheap, safe material for EV this one. So this is a cathode material LiSO2, LiMn2O4, LiSO4. These are 3 important materials in the lithium industry. Recently we start work on LiFemin is the one introduction which we have done. Okay. You can identify here that some of the common features in all these. They will have sandwich kind of structure, right? Lithium sits between. So this is actually metal oxide. CO, what cobalt sits at the center, and carbon are oxygen, what we call as cobalt oxygen oxide class. Okay, and they are like sandwich. So lithium sits between. Okay, why we need like that? So that lithium can move fast, right? Can go out, come. So you need like a sandwich kind of structure. Same thing in the lithium spinners, right? You have open structure. Lithium can come and go and kind of. Something similar with lithium iron phosphate, the red ones are the lithium. So open sandwich kind of structure is more important for lithium heat regulation, beam regulation. So the same thing which we also identified in this compound, right? It also has open structure like this. And again, people did not earlier. I will tell you that this is not we identified first time. Compound was again known, but like this, people discarded this because one is see here magnesium 4+, right? So you cannot oxidize magnesium 4+ more. If you do it, it goes solution. It cannot be solid. Okay. So people disregarded this as a battery material. But then we figured out that this can be used in batteries, and then we showed that this shows double the capacity of all known materials. I will come back to that a little later. Okay, so when we do charging discharging, this is for lithium iron phosphate. I just want to show, you will say that what is charging discharging, what happens? Electrochemical. You start from here, when lithium is 1, right? You charge it, just battery, charge it. So what happens? So you slowly remove lithium, slowly, right? Then you discharge it, come back. So you do several times. This can be done in an electrochemical device, like what is the galvanostat or potentiostat, you can do that one. And also we call about this 1C, 2C and all that. That means how fast you are removing and putting lithium back in this structure. If you are removing completely one lithium from the structure, in 1 hour it's called 1C rate. So that means fast. And the 1C means removing one lithium in 1 hour is called 1C rate, C rate. If I say 5C means removing one lithium is 1/5 hours. Okay. If I say C/2 means removing lithium in 2 hours. C/2. Okay. So what do we want battery people is you should be able to charge, discharge it fast, right? You should be able to charge fast, at least it should not discharge. So that means you want to have instead of 1C, 5C, 10C, 100C. 10C means removing one lithium or putting one lithium in 1/10th of an hour. 1/100th of C is charging it in 1/100th of an hour. That means less than 6 minutes, right? So you want to have a battery which can work or charge in 1/6 or 1/100th of an hour. So that is the same charging time is equivalent to filling a petrol, right? 5 minutes. So whether is possible. So these are the common cathodes which we use. See the values I put here. This is the theoretical values. If you completely can remove lithium, but real what we see is usually half of that, because you cannot remove completely lithium from the structure. What happens? That sandwich structure, what I talked now, collapse. Once it collapses, you cannot put back lithium. So you will be able to remove 50 to 60% of lithium from this sandwich structure, so that still the sandwich structure remains. When I say sandwich structure, you cannot see it. It's only you have to visualize it, because these are in angstrom level. If you take a particle of LiCO2, then you see EM images, then only you will be able to see that kind of sandwich structure. But all materials are like this only. So you will not be able to remove completely all lithium from the structure or put back. So usually you use 50 to 60%. So that's why the number is actually. So in batteries the capacity is usually 140, 150. That's all. Okay, not more than that. So these are some of the companies and the batteries which what they use and all that. So usually the graphite as anode people use, because you have to work. I told already, like cathode is the culprit. Lot of different LCO means lithium cobalt oxide, LMO means lithium manganese oxide. These are typical language that people use. LFP is lithium iron phosphate. MNC is like instead of cobalt you have partially nickel, manganese, etc. And these are the companies which are working on, like Sony, Sanyo, or Samsung, Panasonic, all these companies. Okay. Some other similar companies, like many people are working on that. Okay, I just quickly go through. Yeah, anode material, like yeah. So what I talked about, like in a cathode, mainly the reactions, like how the lithium putting in, taking back happens by a reaction called intercalation. That is sandwiching, like you remove, put it back into. So that's called intercalation mechanism, because lithium intercalates in the structure. That's the mechanism which is known in cathode. In anode, graphite, TiO2, LCO they call. Same instances happen. You have seen that graphite, lithium putting back, taking back. We also know two other mechanisms in anode. One is alloying reaction. That means lithium just forms an alloy. It's not intercalation. In intercalation, it just goes and sits in between that layer structure. In alloying, lithium reacts in each thin atom or silicon atom, bismuth atom. So in fact, it forms like this is a compound which forms. Like this is the intercalation here. I said like silicon 2 is the capacity. With the aluminum in silicon, it's like ratio is like 4 times. Lithium 4, silicon 1 kind of thing. So it's an alloying reaction. Because of that, you have fluid capacity, theoretical as well as I think it's experimental. So this is the experimental here, this is the theoretical here. So the capacity value is actually high, much higher than the intercalation reaction, right? But the problem is, see, everything looks good. Why don't we use silicon then? The problem is this: the volume changes. When it forms an alloy, volume changes by 300 times. That means 3 times volume change of that particle. Now you think you make a battery with a silicon or tin, and during lithium reaction, the electrode bulges like 300% volume change. That means 3 times. So your battery has to give that alloys that much volume there. So that is a real problem with the alloying reaction. Okay. So even though silicon, bismuth, tin, all this looks much 10 times better than the graphite, the problem is volume changes. How you accommodate. And I told you that we coat this material, the copper sheet or copper ribbon. During this volume change happens, like the charge discharge, what we call it interparticle contact. Like when they shrink, they expand, shrink back. Interparticle contact will be lost. Particle peels off, or the area will peel off. So this is the real problem, the battery fails there. So if you use silicon tin material, after a few cycles, your electrode material peels off because of the volume changes, stress developed in the crystal structure. So even though they show so much important good thing, capacity wise, like I told, like this 4000 compared to 200, silicon, tin, aluminum, all these things will fail in battery because they show the volume change and the part. So that's where the nanomaterials come into picture. Nanomaterial can accommodate this stress better way, and so that nowadays we come up with the battery material silicon tin having nanomaterials. Next slide. So this is the same thing which I am talking about. You see carbon here, right? So much small capacity. Silicon is such a huge capacity, and silicon is anyway cheap material, cheaper material. All these things, aluminum, tin, they show much good, better capacity, but we cannot use as such because the volume change problem. So good thing doesn't come that simple way. That's our thing lesson here. That if you want to use, you should make sure that this volume change, you cannot stop it. Volume change is always there, but how we will accommodate? That's where the nanomaterial. You have sufficient space for atoms or to relax themselves. So enough space. That's what you have to work on. Like when you talk about silicon anode or thin anode, it's basically a nanomaterial. Somebody asked me the same thing. Like when we talk nano, your nano means the smallest particle, right? In nanometer scale. But your electrode is big, huge, bulk. So it's an integration of nanomaterial. When I say your electrode is not nano, the electrode contains nanomaterial. So don't confuse on this. Like your paint can have nanomaterial, but when you make on wall, this is a wall paint becomes a bulk. So it's a integration of nanoparticles to realize big objects. Okay. Next. So this is what I talked about. You combine this cathode, different cathode with the different anodes, and then the difference between the EMF is the voltage of your battery. So you can combine different. These are the available lithium. Out of that lithium iron phosphate, the lowest one because it shows only 3 volts. Anything you combine, you will have a battery with the lower voltage. But you have advantage is that it's a cheap material, lithium ion is cheaper, and the safety. So EV batteries companies prefer this one because it's cheaper and safe. You don't want to ride your car with lithium cobalt oxide which has a fire hazard. Okay. So this is the problem with the battery, lithium battery. That's what I want to talk here. Is the lithium diffusion is the key problem. These all are solids, anode, cathode. So lithium has to diffuse from one to another, right? And but they are not liquid. Diffusion is easier in liquids. We all know. Very, very difficult in solid. Okay. So the key problem in the battery is the diffusion. So all that power density, whatever we talk, should have lithium diffusion faster. Then only you can pour it out, or you can extract energy fast. It can lithium mobility is higher. Okay, that's the one thing is a problem. Of course, it depends on material as such. The lithium mobility is in different materials are different. Okay, so cathode mainly works on intercalation. In the anode side, you have intercalation in graphite, EiO2, LiO kind of material. Then you also have silicon, tin, aluminum, where alloying reaction takes place. They have to show high capacity, but volume change is the problem. One more reaction which is realized in anode material is called conversion reaction. This is a very important, the recent discovery by a person, French guy called J.M. Tarascon, who is also my collaborator in other work. Next, transition metal oxide, like iron oxide, manganese oxide, all these people never thought there can be battery materials. But when you make nano, maybe next slide, let's see. Okay, this is the one I talked about this one. Next slide. Okay, I will come to that. When you make nanomaterials of iron oxide, manganese oxide, cobalt oxide, these nanomaterials have high surface area, high surface energy. So because of that, they become highly reactive with lithium. So this conversion reaction, what we talk, it's only possible in nanomaterials. Okay, not bulk Fe3O4. So that's about one new area was discovered because of nanomaterials. The conversion reaction in simple oxide, iron oxide, cobalt oxide. These people never thought there can be electrode materials because it doesn't react in bulk and you cannot change oxidation state and all that quickly. But when you make, I will come back to that later. When you make them nano, even simple metal oxide can be anode material. So this is something which everybody in companies have to work on. Like one is how to increase the energy density of battery, power density of battery, then of course cost of a battery, then safety of a battery. Everything is integrated. Then finally life cycle, like how long the battery can last. So everything has to be worked out. Okay, this is our like what we do work on. We like this to just show you that important area for us is crystal chemistry, understanding crystal structure, chemistry. The basic science is the most important. In any applied science, you say that this is whether we are working on applied or basic. There always people talk whether basic or applied. Any applied science needs a solid ground of basic science. Okay. If you don't understand simple chemistry, you cannot work on field like fuel cells and batteries. So crystal chemistry most important part there. Then of course composition, what to put, what element to put, how it works, all that like cooking. Right? We have to work on that. The previous the speaker, he talked about how to use different chemistry methods, solid state synthesis, solution synthesis, all that we and also how you tweak morphology, particle size, because the nanomaterials comes here, right? Morphology means how the shape. It's all, everything is important there. Okay. Then finally, whether your material, when we say anode or cathode, you need to have good electronic and ionic conductivity. So when we talk about one material, we have to work on all these things. Okay. Materials with optimum size, having better electronic conductivity, right crystal chemistry. This is the one which is very in demand. Okay. Next. I just want to highlight just one slide to tell you people that what we have achieved in the last 2-3 years. We have developed a battery material, and when I say battery means we don't produce batteries. We made batteries which can charge in 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. We use this nano, again lithium NMC and lithium titanium oxide anode material for ultra fast charge discharge. This is one area. Then I talked about sodium. I will come to again that one. Instead of lithium, we made some compounds. Then we work on a material lithium manganese oxide which shows the double the capacity than known material so far. I talked about lithium cobalt oxide, lithium iron phosphate, all that 140, 150. I'll show the next slide there, this one, where we have shown that the capacity of that material will be more than 250. So that's where that we could get 2 Nature material papers. Okay. So when we talk about the battery, okay, the battery can be for simple use like application like a mobile phone or laptop, or for EV application, or like power grid, right? For all that you need batteries for storage. So these are some of the what we say that criteria for a battery. They are more or less same for everywhere. But what is important is the criteria is the same, but the priorities are different. When you talk about small applications, like here, you don't bother about cost much. Okay. All that you want to have more time, more energy in that battery. Energy density will be more. Safety, of course, second important. Life cost, okay, battery anyway, mobile phone keep changing every year. Okay. Power is not that great, you don't care for power much there. But when it comes to EV battery, safety is the most important part, because you are feeding over that battery, because the EV vehicle battery is like beneath the driver seat. Okay. So you don't want the explosion there. So the next criteria is power. When you accelerate, the battery should be able to give the power. Okay. Then energy density, of course. Cost, anyway, you cannot work on that much. So here, when you talk about grid support, then cost is the most important part. Safety, okay, not you can get the force. So what I'm to say that depending on the application, you can use different material, right? You need not use same. Here LiCO2 is more important, but here can be iron phosphate. Okay, here for maybe other material. So depending on your priorities, you can change the connection. Okay, so because of the here you want small and you are not talking about here the megawatt. Here just watt hour, few watt hour. So you can have different batteries. So don't think that one battery can solve all the issues. What we have to think is for laptops, you can think of different battery. For EV, different battery. Okay, it need not be same. So these are the various applications of batteries now, lithium batteries. Slide. So this is what I was talking about, right? These are the most important things when we talk about the batteries. Right now, what the agenda is, you have to reduce the cost of a battery by like you have to divide by 5 times, that 1/5 of the cost, real cost. Then energy density, what we talk, we need to double at least. For when we have wide applications of lithium batteries in the EV or other grid support, we need to have come up this way, that you have to increase energy density by 2, cost should be reduced by 5 times. Thanks. So these are some of the research which we have been working on. See, one way is that whatever I talk, lithium cobalt oxide, lithium manganese oxide, lithium iron phosphate, only one lithium, right? I am thinking that can we have more lithium, 2 lithium? So what happens? You will be you are doubling the energy density. Can we have that kind of material? Then here also again the same. There are 2 lithiums, right? So you can have 5 lithiums in the structure, so that you can double the energy density. Then new materials with fluorophosphates, all this, we are playing with the what we say the ionicity, the bond structure, the bond length, can you electronegativity, all these things you have to think of when you these are cooking. You have to whether the structure can form, all these things. So these are the few looks good to see, but it's very difficult to make all these compounds. Okay, you can see that all these have some kind of open structure where lithium can go in and out. Next slide. So this is the one which we recently were working on. You can see that this is how much lithium you can extract, put back. This is the voltage, real voltage, and all that. You will do galvanostat charging, discharging, and you see this curve here. This is number of cycles, 50 cycles, 100 cycle charge, discharge. Definitely above 140, right? Somewhere 220, 230. Okay. So this is the new material which we double. See, even a small increase from 140 to 150, the industry looks at very they will be very, very excited. So something that similar to that, we showed that this material shows almost double the capacity compared to the known lithium cobalt oxide material. Of course, the issue is again the ruthenium is more costlier. Okay, next slide. So this is something related to that. We also put tin little bit, and we show that here also maximum capacity is doubled. By working on this, we also showed, see, in the lithium cobalt oxide or any material, we say that there is a change in oxidation state of cobalt, right? 3 to 4 plus. But we never bother what happens to oxygen or oxide. See, this is not gas oxygen, it is a solid. The oxygen is in the solid, in the crystal structure. We showed for the first time here, it's not only the whatever this one inorganic material or any metal there, the oxygen of the electrode also get oxidized and reduced. So this is what I am trying to tell you in a very simpler way. So in addition to these transition metals, with cobalt ion getting oxidized and reduced. The oxide ion in the lattice also getting oxidized and reduced simultaneously. So you have two candidates, iron, ruthenium or iron. In addition to that, you also have the oxygen ion, which also gets oxidized and reduced simultaneously. So now the capacity is doubled. So this is a new mechanism which we showed couple of years, 2013, so which was accepted in the Nature. So okay, so all that material which we talked are inorganic material, right? Lithium ion, lithium cobalt oxide. We have limited resource of cobalt and expensive, and extracting cobalt, mining, oring, all that has a lot of issues, right? Ideal situation is whether we can recycle battery materials, right, like this. Can we reuse them? Or can we get battery material itself from kind of a biomass? All materials that we use in battery is mainly are inorganic materials. Can we use something recyclable material? Can we extract something from biomass? Right? That's the final agenda. Like finally you should be able to use green chemistry everywhere. So that's what the next goal for us is, whether we can get some kind of electrode material, not inorganic basis, organic basis. Okay, that's what we are trying. Then also whether we can replace lithium with sodium, magnesium. Then finally, I talked about morning breathing batteries and lithium sulfur batteries. So this is our current agenda next. Why organic? Inspired by nature, because inorganic have high cost, environmental hazard problems, all theoretical cost, all these things, right? Organic, lower cost, environmental friendly because we all use them everywhere, and the safety, you will not have an issue with the safety, and mainly like you no need to extract from nature. They are not limited. You can prepare in laboratory, right? So that's the idea. Like, can we make electrode material from organics? Next. Yes, we can. So this is just to show you that we can actually use organics in the batteries. Okay. So this is a compound, right? This is the one. We can take 4 lithium, not 1 lithium, right? We can make this compound. This is what cycling looks like. Like you can see that almost 5 to 6, right? This is the capacity you can get, and this material can be prepared in laboratory, right? In fact, like next slide, you can make that material from a simple material like phytic acid, which is available plenty in fruits and wood, right? You can extract that one, you can do this reaction and get this battery material. 8% of the dry weight of carbon shaping liquid is phytic acid. From that you can start. So you can make battery from bio. Similarly, tetrahydroquinone. So what most important is the carbonyl group there, CO group, where the lithium can be attached. Okay, again. Next. Ellagic acid and purpurins, all these naturally available materials, right? These are like available in fruits, like oranges, all these things. So this is the functional group there. You have hydroxy group or phenolic group here, and here also something where the lithium can attack and react. Okay, so a lot of compounds are available. You can think of many organic materials. Those who work on organics, you think of having a functional group like this CO, where lithium can attach all these things. Okay, okay. Before that, yes. But what is the issue with the organic here? So we talk so much about what organic can be used, but why there is no organic battery? The real, see, that's again, anything not they dissolve in electrolyte, ECDMs, right? You are using organic electrolyte, and you are using organic as a electrode, cathode or anode. That simply dissolve. So you have to figure out now the electrolyte where this organic doesn't dissolve. Okay, and of course there's other issues. Another problem is conductivity. The electrode should be conductive. This organic material, whatever we are talking, they are not conducting. So you have to make them conducting somehow. So these are the issues. Okay, that's about organics. I talked about like whether can we replace lithium with the sodium, magnesium, all that. Looks very good, right? Because sodium availability on earth is so plenty, especially our country, we don't have lithium, it's better to work on sodium batteries. And voltage wise, we don't have much problem because lithium gives 3 volts, sodium has 2.5, so small variation, that's okay, we can do. And in addition to that, sodium, like safety wise, cost wise, environmental abundance, everything sodium is better. So recently the world started to look towards sodium batteries. So we are working on this kind of things. Chemistry wise, how the battery mechanism, everything like lithium. Only you should have material containing sodium instead of lithium, and you should use electrolyte which are sodium containing. And of course, anode can be used, carbon can be used as a anode, but some issues there, but we can also work on other things. So these are the 2 companies now seriously working and coming out the product, Equion Energy and Faraday. So they have already come up with the products of sodium battery. Okay, we all talked about batteries, whether, see finally, when we talk about electric vehicles, right? 1 liter of gasoline gives this much energy. Current day lithium-ion battery, this much energy, right? 150 watts. The gap is 15 times. So can really battery can compete with the petrol? There is a question. Such a small energy. Why we will go for electric vehicle if the gap is so much? 15 times. Yeah. Is there any chemistry which can beat this petrol in energy density wise? So that's what we have been looking for. The world looking for that. Whether any try to understand whether there is any chemistry which can surpass this gasoline energy density. So there are 2 chemistries, lithium sulfur and lithium air batteries. So this is the one. See, look the energy density here. This is the gasoline, the practical energy density is here given. And if you see the lithium air, it also theoretically can compete with petrol. And the practical value was close, right? So lithium air can actually replace petrol. Okay, lithium and air, not so cheap. There is nothing that you, the lithium one side, air, what we call the breathing batteries. So it's so simple and can actually replace gasoline. What? Yeah, I will come to that. Okay. Next slide. So these are 2 I am showing here, lithium sulfur and lithium air battery. Okay. In a lithium air battery, you have lithium one side, everything same, lithium anode, and you allowing oxygen through the cathode. Cathode consists of 2-3 things. One is you should allow air or oxygen, so you should have a porous material. Usually the porous carbon, porous graphite is used, through which oxygen can pass through. In addition to that, we need a catalyst, electrocatalyst, which they can reduce oxygen, because O2 cannot be used as such in the reaction, so you should make O2 minus. So we need a catalyst there. So the cathode is consists of the porous carbon and a catalyst, okay, through which the oxygen can pass through. So breathing battery, and the other things are same. You need a separator, okay. You can use a liquid electrolyte, organic electrolyte, no problem, to allow the lithium to pass through, or a solid. So everything will, other than that, everything will be same. So the reaction is lithium plus oxygen in like O2 is a voltage around 3.14, energy is given here. Okay. And this is a lithium sulfur, where lithium is one side, electrolyte can be same or different, okay, like lithium ion batteries. The other side electrode, instead of LiPo2, LiFeO4, CO4, is just a sulfur. Sulfur reacts the lithium, forming the LiPo2. This is the voltage and this is the energy density. Okay. Looks very simple, reactions like very simple. And even if you divide this factor when you make battery, okay, that's a weight, there are so many things you are adding up, all these things. Even if you divide by 10 and say that, okay, I am getting only 380, and you say here also I am getting only 500. Still it's okay because we are much better than this, right? Right? Definitely they are much better than current day batteries. So that's why lots of work recent days, like throughout the world on these two things, lithium air and lithium sulfur. Lithium sulfur, yes, looks like it's going to work soon. We have seen lab also we work. We have seen it's working. The batteries are working. Lithium air still in a demonstration way. That I can show you a small battery, but there are a lot of real issues to make it a commercial product. So this is what when we talk of EV, lead acid 50 kilometers, nickel cadmium battery car 80 kilometers. This is one. Current day we are here 160 kilometer car can run with the lithium ion. Future we can just improve little bit 200 kilometers with the lithium batteries. But if you are looking for a car which can run, you want to run for 400 and 500, then you have to move to these batteries. And this is already available. Lithium sulfur under development in the lab, and a lot of companies are coming up now. But lithium is still an R&D because it has chemistry is an issue, right? But more engineering issues. Okay. I told you already about what the issue here is. You have porous carbon, and then the catalyst you should allow oxygen to come. The problem is, this is a problem. The electrolyte reacts with oxygen and decompose the electrolyte. So many other issues like how to control the reaction. Many times what happens, we see that forward reaction happens, Li2O2 formation happens, the reverse doesn't happen. So the chemistry is, because you need to have a very good catalyst there to break Li2O2 bond. Lithium oxygen bond is so strong. You need a good catalyst to break that Li2O2 bond. And another problem during charge and discharge, the voltage gap. Right? You can not working this battery one. Right. So that voltage during charge and discharge so huge, right? You are actually putting more energy during charge. While discharge you get low energy. So you are basically getting your system, battery system. So I can use this one. Okay. So that is the real issue there. You need to have a good catalyst for lithium air, and of course a good engineering carbon catalyst putting together, and then you need to have a right electrolyte there. Okay, these are the issues. So the problems in lithium air, you can see that I listed them. So you all can work on this, and if you can solve any one, you become a billionaire. Okay. Oh, I see. So people got excited. Okay. Okay. You need catalyst, good one for us. All this interface, safety issues, protection field, dendrite formation, and how to make it this, all these things. Like so many companies are working on this. So this is one which material which we developed in our lab. Right? You can go back. You can see that you could cycle up to 3000 capacity. 140, 150 I was talking lithium ion. You can see this material. This is the first time we showed that at least 10 cycles. People report only now 2-3 cycles because after that your cell is dead because of so many issues. And we have seen here shown at least 14-15 cycles. This is the real battery here what we are getting here. Okay. Lithium sulfur, same way, but instead of lithium cobalt oxide, you are having sulfur there. Right? So sulfur is a cheapest, eco-friendly, all this fine. And there are 3 companies, Oxys, Polyplus and Sion. These are the 3 companies who are now really coming out with the product. Okay, the issue is here again, you have sulfur cathode and you have lithium and you have electrolyte here. Sulfur forms many these kind of compounds with the lithium, okay, what we call as polysulfides. These polysulfides dissolve in electrolyte, organic, that's another problem. Dissolution is not a problem, it's good. But what happens once it dissolves, it goes to the other side, right? And they form a solid polysulfide on the lithium side. So cathode goes and deposits on the anode. That is the problem. The battery will die within a few cycles. That's a real issue. So we come up with a lot of strategies here how to avoid this polysulfide dissolution, what we also call as shuttling phenomena, the cathode dissolving and going and depositing an anode. So that is called shuttle phenomenon. So we have to come up with a strategy how to avoid this. So that's a lot of work on nanomaterials. Basically what we do is you put sulfur or encapsulate sulfur in various nanomaterials, nanotubes or graphene, all these things, so that sulfur will not leach away to the solution. So that's the one mechanism. So a lot of interest in both lithium air and lithium sulfur with respect to nanomaterials. So that's what I wanted to show here, like 100, 200 cycles and the capacity is thousands, right? The issues, again I talked shuttle phenomena problem, rate capability because it's dissolution, all that things, this is how it looks like. And this is the vehicle which uses lithium sulfur battery. It's in London. Navia is the company. Again you can see that in Indian name. This is the problem with the lithium batteries, right? This is what I told you. I will show you some scary pictures. Laptop bursting and mobile phone don't talk too long. And Dreamliner Boeing 787 actually used lithium batteries for some time because for powering that this one. But then there was safety issue. Then nowadays they don't use lithium batteries there. Okay, so that all issues in batteries mainly because of the electrolytes, because organic. So we are thinking whether also some other companies in the world whether can replace this electrolyte with a solid. So that's what work we are doing now, removing this organic electrolyte with a solid inorganic electrolyte. But again I talked about the problem is already you have issue of lithium diffusion in cathode and anode. Now you put electrolyte which is also solid. So you have the diffusion problem. So your battery working or the fast, how fast you can charge this charge. That also matters now because whole lithium diffusion is going to be small, slow, and then what we say that interface problem between these also going to cause a lot of problems. However, the world everybody works. One day somebody will come up with a solution. Already there are two companies again now come up with the products. This is another thing which recently we started work on, solar battery hybrid. I just will mention it, where solar cell and the battery will be integrated together, right? It's one single thing. So we are trying to develop this kind of material also where you have battery and solar cell together. Where we use only what we call the DSSC cell, disulfide solar cells, where we use only the natural pigment, chlorophyll or betaine, which is from beetroot. That kind of material you use and develop a solar cell and the battery together. The battery will be lithium air battery. Okay, so this is the outlook. Started from 1990. Then future you are looking for lithium air batteries. Okay, so just I'll quickly go through this. I don't want to discuss much about the electric vehicles. This is one of the slides from Mahindra Deva where they show that if you have an electric car, driving cost is rupees 0.4, means 40 paisa per kilometer. If you use gasoline, 4 rupees per kilometer. This is the calculations, right? If you have electric, finally you have battery, lithium battery for your vehicle, you can cost cutting. You can see there's so much cost cutting. This is how from Thomas Alva Edison, his car, and today's lithium Ultra, Nissan Ultra car having the lithium batteries, and plug in all these things. In a hybrid vehicle you have only gasoline, fully electric you have only the lithium batteries. Plug-in hybrid works in both battery as well as the gasoline. This is the previous car Toyota Prius, which is working on used only nickel metal hydride battery. And today we are here, Nissan Leaf car, which is fully loaded with the lithium batteries here. And now people are also thinking whether we can have a solar roof on the car. And this car runs on using solar light 30 kilometers. So it is fine, right? You can go around Konajar near Mangalore with this kind of car without petrol, right? And then aluminum air, like lithium air batteries. So this is, I just want to say that, this is the energy what the batteries give here, 80 kilowatt hour and all these things. And these are so many companies working on using the lithium ion batteries here. These so many cars, and this is a Tesla car which somebody asked me morning. Okay, this is a battery, lithium battery pack. I told like batteries need to be connected series and all these things. So this is a battery pack. You have so many batteries. The kilowatt hours battery is 85 kilowatt hour, and this car runs 500 kilometers in one charge. Okay, I'll just skip. These are two important models, Nissan Leaf and Tesla. They use different configurations of 18650 cell. This use pouch cells and all these things. And India also creates the electromobility dream. This is what I was chairman for one of the electromobilities between session of India and German, where that I got a chance to be part of this exhibition. So Mahindra Eva is a car which is India's dream, and there are other cars coming up: Maruti Suzuki, Swift RE, and Kirloskar, Tata, TVS, all in the. But these are in the the development stage. That now Mahindra only has the one which come up to the market. I will stop this talk perhaps here. I will give this all slide to you people so you can go through it. I will go quickly to the next, so I can spend nanometer something half an hour. So my message is never see any chemistry. You cannot neglect that it will not work. It will work only. Right? People never thought these nanomaterials, all this will work in batteries, but today we see that they close the battery. These are my group. Okay. This is just connection to the previous talk by Dr. Ramchandra Rao about materials, right? Materials show a lot of different properties, all these things we talk. All this property comes because of the electron. Electrons have 4 degrees of freedom, what we call as charge, spin, and orbital, all these things. So because of these properties of electron, it can correlate, or it can give a new property, what we call as polymorphism of electron. And in a solid, electron doesn't move all alone. It has to move with the other, what we call as band structure, right? You might have studied all this. In a solid, it is a band structure. Electrons are not moving single, it's in the bands, so many electrons. So they will be under the influence of other electrons. In addition to, it should be what we call as lattice, right? It also have to interact with the other matter of the solid. So the electron movement in a solid has to be, it's not single, it has to be correlated, like it will be correlated with other ions and all that. That's why electrons shows, or the material shows different properties: conduction, ionic, dielectric, magnetic, optical, and many times these properties itself get complicated, or come up with a new thing. For example, spintronic, spin electronic. Electron has spin and charge. The combination of that comes here, spin electronic. In a regular electronics, we only use charge, but here spin and the charge of electron. When we say spin, it's a magnetism. Charge means it's a semiconducting property. Then we call it multiferroic, ferromagnetism, ferroelectric, all this property together in a material. Then of course superconducting. All these things nowadays take more importance. People are looking for this kind of material, spintronics, multiferroics, all these things, because they show high memory devices, etc. These are some of the materials and properties which I listed here. You see this, okay? All are very interesting there, like superconductivity to spintronics, multiferroics, fast ion conducting, electrode materials, supercapacitors. In addition to photocatalysis, water treatment, very important, solid state lighting where the energy can be saved, sensors for many applications, heat, light, all these things. Then the previous talk on ceramics, biomedical, things, almost every body spare part can be made now, and also like in heart valves using ceramics. There is a company called Syncardia in California. They make artificial hearts. Okay, so all this can be possible because of the different materials, ceramics what we use. Okay, so that's what the materials are very important. And this just to show you the introduction, what is nano. Okay, this is the one of the historical like in the cup which is available in the British Museum, which is, you see, the 4th century AD, right? When light passes through it and reflected back, like you have two different colors, right? One is when you view it from the front side, one is from back side. The color, ruby color, comes because people found out recently that it's because of gold nanoparticle in that cup which was made in 4th century AD. So what I'm telling is nano is not new. Okay, and this is Mayan blue pigment, right, of the year 2000 BC, before 2000 BC, before 2000 years old. And this is a painting which they made. Now recently when we look this is a science paper looked in by TEM image. This is a silicate which they contain, and okay, and also they found lot of nanoparticles, gold and that iron, manganese, chromium nanoparticles hidden in that paints. So they made nanoparticle even that time. So what I'm trying to tell is here is, for last 30-40 years only we understood the importance of nano, but nano is not new. Nano was utilized centuries ago, but only thing that people did not know that it's nano, or what is the why the property comes, or what is the reason for this. Only people knew that perhaps these can be used, all these kind of things. Even our own Ayurveda where people are using nano things, right? That bhasma, right? But nobody knew what it consists of and why the property comes. Until this man, Michael Faraday, told us what is nano, right? So he made gold nano sol in 1857, okay, and he talked about this is the real gold particle he made with the ruby color. What he told in that paper is, gold leaf can be beaten to thickness of this inch, that's nothing but 90 nanometers, and such film can be continuous and green in transmission. Further thinning with potassium cyanide, that means you are further decreasing the size of this particle, you will get ruby red film. That means with the different particle size, he said the gold can have different colors. So that is the first experiment, evidence showing that nanoparticle can show different colors. So this is Michael Faraday. We all have great regard for him, right? He lived in 1857 at that time, and he lived before the Nobel Prizes. Unfortunately, he lived before Nobel Prize because he made so many discoveries in his lifetime. If he lived after the Nobel Prizes, I am sure he might have got at least 15 Nobel Prizes. All his discoveries are for, like, such a large applications. You think of, like, electromagnetic induction, right? That's one property we use everywhere, like generators, motors, and even whole electrochemistry, even the batteries. Anode, cathode, the name was given by Michael Faraday. That time, remember, electron was not discovered yet. Okay, and he discovered sodium, chlorine gas, like a few of the elements in periodic table. One man again, and magnetism, diamagnetism, and paramagnetism. All he made simple experiment. You might have, such a high IQ man. How he discovered magnetism? He filled the balloons with a different gas, oxygen, nitrogen. Just flow them the balloons through the magnets. He saw that oxygen is moving to us. That means oxygen is a paramagnetic and not nitrogen. So what we study in our MSc class, we show that nitrogen is diamagnetic, oxygen is paramagnetic. He showed by simple experiment filled with the balloons. So such a great man. So we have to have a high regard for this guy, Michael Faraday. Another great scientist, Richard Feynman, talked about nanomaterials in 1959 in Caltech. So he talked about, he was actually a person who started to work on supercomputers that time. He says here, if we can arrange the atoms the way we want, the very atoms all the way down, that means we can make nano, and then we can arrange them the way we want. Of course, what he was telling, but he knew that it's not possible that, but he predicted in 1959 about this. So Richard Feynman, you might have seen that lot of books, Feynman lecture series and all that. So I think it's available here also. You must read it because his books are very, very interesting, like a lot of stories. And he was at Los Alamos, and I was there. He was at this time, right? I was there in 2006. After 50 years, he was there for making nuclear bombs. You know that story of Los Alamos, right? That was the first nuclear bombs were made at Los Alamos and dropped it on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That time, all this he was also worked, and this is the team. You know, all great scientists. This is a photograph. This is the wall poster at Los Alamos in one of the lab room like this. So I just photographed that one. So that's why the 2006 year, since to just show that I was also there after 50 years. Okay. So this is Robert Oppenheimer. All quantum chemists, right? Teller, all these people are there. Bradley. Okay. So I already told about that. Like even the people have seen the effects of nano, people did not realize because they are not able to see what's nano, right? Because we did not had powerful microscope till up to that point. Only when we had a nice microscope, transmission electron microscope, we could really arrange atoms. What our scientist said, like we could arrange the atom the way we want. So this is the one like quantum corals where iron can be atoms on copper. This is a copper substrate where iron atoms can be. This is very, very nano. Because of that, they could see the quantum ripples in that structure. Like you can see this some kind of wave patterns. This is another example for seeing atoms in the transmission electron microscope, STEM image. You can even see, even if you dope a small amount of lanthanum in aluminum oxide, you can figure out where that lanthanum is sitting. So, most important part for nanomaterials is this, electron microscopy. This is our work. Battery material here. You could see that I talked about layer material, right? So they are layers, right? You can see in the microscope the nicely arranged atoms. That here lithium. You cannot see lithium because lithium is a light. That's why you don't see lithium in between. But then you can see that transition metal sitting like this. Okay. So this is a TEM image. Then you can even figure out what's the element sitting there and all that. So applications of nano, many. Clean environment. Like just skip all this one by one. Like alternative energy. Then diagnostic techniques, drug delivery. You small amount of drug is more than enough now because all made of nano. So same effect can be done with like if you are using few grams, now milligrams of nanomaterial is enough because they have high surface energies, high surface, high reactivity and all that. So this is the area. Then somebody asked me whether magnetic material can be made or used in nano, many applications. You can see here ferrofluid, high density information storage, iron oxide can be utilized. Then we also call as something called new effect magnetocaloric refrigeration. That means you cool the material to lowest helium temperature. Then I'm talking magnetic material. Suddenly demagnetize. So there is no because of the adiabatic phenomena. So the material use its internal energy to cool down to helium temperature. So you can even reach 1 Kelvin or below that. And then lot of biomedical applications, MRI scanning, and then I talked about drug delivery, etc. So today's our importance on this talking about battery fuel cells and supercapacitors. Okay. Nanotechnology is not today not just on chemistry or physics. It belongs to all divisions, like all area of science and engineering, everything, right? So a lot of people work on this, and it addresses new properties and new functions because when it's nano, it can show properties which you never thought of before. Okay, and then you can integrate this nanoparticle into a bigger dimension, and you can utilize. You can even use as a paint or even electrodes, etc., etc. So that's what somebody asked me. When nano means how can you use? You are using nano and integrate those nanoparticles into bigger particles. Okay. So this is one of thing. One, like, roughly, if you see that, bulk particle, 1 micron particle or 10 micron particle which are shown here, the surface area you can calculate, right? 10 to the minus, the 10 to the minus micron means 10 to the minus 5. Then volume you can calculate, right? 6 sides. Volume you can calculate by cube. Then surface, 6 surfaces, you can calculate what is the surface area. Then you can calculate surface by volume ratio. These are more important things. Just calculate the ratio and you get this value. You now break this particle into small into nanometer. What happens? Then nanometer, did I close it? Okay. 10 nanometers means 10 to the minus 8 meters. Now volume is 10 to the minus 8 into cube, 10 to the minus 10 to 24. Okay. Then surface 6 into these numbers, and you see the surface area. Okay. And compare here. Same particle, you just divide into many numbers and made small, and finally calculate surface to volume ratio. Okay. 6 into 10 to the 29, and here 10 to. That means surface to volume ratio is very high here. That means high surface area, high surface energy, and most of the particles here are on the surface. So all atoms are available for reaction. Okay, when it's nano. So you can think of spherical particle, then you can calculate. I just go quickly because I know that time is up now. You can think of two different shape, cube and spherical, and you have. When you say nano, it need not be nano in all dimensions. Like it can be nano in 1 dimensions, 2 dimensions, and all 3 dimensions. Okay, you can have like a film or cube or that kind of structure, and finally the nanoparticles. 2 ways. Okay, so that's what I am talking here. Just keep. So the effect of nano is. As I already talked to morning, now and as well as the previous speaker, large fraction of surface atoms. So all atoms are on the surface. They are available for reaction. Large surface energy, and then since they are on the surface, there is uncompensated bonding interaction, so they can react quickly with other things. Then spatial confinement, because the electron get confused here because it cannot move throughout the lattice. So the properties of the nano is mainly because of this enhanced surface area and surface volume ratio. Then it can show a lot of electrical, different magnetic, optical properties, etc. And these all different shapes you can grow. The most important sensational material is graphene. Recently, high surface area, and graphene can be made by 1 layer of graphite. If you can remove by chemical means, you can do that. Large surface area, so you can use. All atoms are available for reactions, so you can utilize it in batteries, fuel cells, and supercapacitors. There are 2 approaches. Since the previous speaker already talked about this, I just will quickly go through this one. One is a physical approach where you just break them using E-beam lithography, multiple beam epitaxy, laser ablation, milling, all these physical ways. Chemicals, in chemistry we have high control. We can do in the different ways, synthesis by sol-gel method, solvothermal, microemulsion, even precipitation reactions. So chemistry control are the more advantageous because simple ways you can do all these things, and various synthesis methods. Okay, these all things which we adopt. I don't go through it now because everything will require 1 hour. Simple precipitation reaction, you can add 2 things and then you can precipitate them as metal hydroxide or oxide, and then you can add a reducing agent, so you can get different nanoparticles, different types. One of the example, lithium cobalt oxide, which you have been talking, you can do by solid state ceramic method, what the previous speaker was talking about, by heating high temperature, then you get micron sized particles. But if you do sol gel method, using different reagents and all that, pH control, you can get nanometer particles. Once you make, different shape, all these things made in our laboratory, and these are the things I skip again. So in a battery, I will just show this one and then I'll stop. I just want to give an introduction. I will not go through it more. What are the advantage of nanomaterial batteries? One is I talked about volume change, right? Thin silicon have 300 times volume change. Now when you have a small particle, they can accommodate this strain more effectively when the insertion deinsertion takes up. Then that improves the cycle life. Then since because of higher surface to volume ratio, most of atoms on the surface, so they can take lithium and give back quickly, and so that you have higher capacity. Of course, higher electrolyte contact, because on the surface you can charge and discharge very high rate. Okay. Then since they are small, lithium can quickly come out, right? So that means high power. Okay. The problem is when you talk about nano is, and there are many other type reactions which one has to look into. So everything looks good, but when you put in battery, it doesn't work because there are so many side reactions. It can react with electrolyte because I told so many dangling bonds and all that. That's also issue. Okay. So we got many such nanomaterials and all that. So we made so many nanomaterials. I'll just stop it because I think it's time, right? No? Okay. I think we are given the batteries to everybody, right? So we worked on many such materials. See, I talked about lithium iron phosphate, right? Everything looks good, but it's not conducting. It's an insulator. So you have to make conducting. The only disadvantage with this material, everything looks fine, but it's not conducting. So we came up with a strategy. Okay. First, you have to make nano particles, so that it have high energy, power, all these things, nano bit. Then you put a carbon coating around this particle, so carbon can conduct, right? So that acts as a supporting electronic conductor there. So we made simple solutions. Again, go back to chemistry, go back to lab, use the beaker, do all the things. We made nanoparticles of lithium iron phosphate by just a simple technique. Then since we use ethylene glycol, citric acid, all these things, finally what happens is it makes a carbon coating around these particles, very thin coating, not it's a few nanometers. Then you see that without that your capacity is very less than 100. When you do that, when you're coating around, you can get the theoretical 160. Similarly, lot of these things. One of this recent work what we did, this anode material, lithium titanium oxide, we use combustion synthesis, that previous speaker was describing that. So that end of this one, you just burn it, whole solution you burn, it catches fire, and then you get very fine particles. This actually the fuel, we use a fuel here, glycine kind of thing for catching fire and all that. Can do, this is a small crucible here, and this very fine nanoparticles, and you can see that that material, even I can discharge even highest rate of 100 C. That means you are charging or discharging or charging this battery material 1/100th of an hour. That means 6 minutes. So if you can make a battery with this material, you can charge your battery full 100% within 5 minutes. So this is how the SEM looks like. You can see that have fluffy particles and highly porous, so that electrolyte can go through, pass through, quick lithium diffusion on this material, etc. Something similar issue what we talked about, those alloying reactions like lithium, tin, though they show very high capacity, they actually fail because of the large volume change, 300%. So you do nano. This is a silicon, the normal silicon. This is the battery capacity, and with a few cycles the battery is dead. You can see that coming down. I make nano, using chemistry again, back lab, and use carbon coating with this, fluoroglycerol kind of thing. Then carbon coating, silicon particles. Okay, matrix. This is how it looks like in SEM. And now you cycle, you see that. Okay. So if you have nanoparticle, the volume change can be like I'm not saying that volume change is not there, but you can effectively overcome that. Lot of different kind of carbon materials are used in batteries, like carbon particles. This is graphene, nanotube, carbon nanotubes, fullerenes, all these things. Then we also use carbon. I talked about conversion reactions, right? This can happen only when the particles are nano size. You can use iron oxide, cobalt oxide, nickel oxide, all these things. When they are nano, they can be battery materials, right? You can see the capacity again much higher than carbon, what we say, graphite anode. Graphite 327, but this 1000 or more, right? Again, but the issue is that you are making them nano. We have made nanoparticle of tin diode SnO2. Again, like starting from tin chloride, and then use a polymerizing agent, a carbon coating agent, polymerize, heat it, burn it. Finally, you get a porous, highly porous, hollow tin oxide, but it's SnO2 particles. This is like hollow inside these particles. So all tin oxides are on the surface, like a football, right? This look like similar thing. So when we use that, you can say that we can get capacity of 800 continuously for many cycles. If you don't do them, if you don't use nano, within few cycles the battery is dead. So this is CO3O4, again similar story. We made this CO3O4. So you can think, when you make nano, only this kind of chemistry works, or this mechanism, or you can use them battery material only when they are nano. Otherwise, in the normal CO3O4 powder, you cannot use here. Okay, using something similar, nano materials, nano integration. People also come up with now something called 3-dimensional battery architecture, where everything is nano. Cathode, anode, and you just put them together, like miniaturized. So what we call it is micro batteries. This can be utilized in your computers. So it can power each and every segment of that. These are very microchips, very small, less than few few mm. And recently there is a group in Rice University, US. They come up paintable battery, cathode paint, anode paint, electrolyte paint, separator paint. So you make it, you use a paper. Finally, it looks like a newspaper. You have a battery. Okay. This is again developed by Indian itself, from Ajayan Pulikal Ajayan from Cochin. He is, of course, he is now settled in US, but that is his research group made paintable battery. Okay. I talked about lithium air, lithium sulfur. I will just stop it. Lot of issues, and finally nanoparticle only the solution here. You need lot of catalyst material, different nanoparticles there, and lithium sulfur. We use lot. I'll show you. I talked about sulfur encapsulation there. I just show the pictures. We use different kind of carbon architecture where you can trap sulfur. Yellow is the sulfur there, and other hollow structures or carbons. You can fix sulfur in this nano, the empty area between these hollow structures, and sulfur is trapped. It cannot come out. So you can solve the dissolution issue there. So many things, so many structures, so many things. Okay, so polyaniline also can be used. I will stop. The next story was a supercapacitor, but I think I'll stop here. Maybe when Madam calls me next time, I can talk about supercapacitor.